We're here at Codemasters today, the home of the team that brings you the Formula 1 game every single year, and it's time to talk F1 2019. So we're off to find Game Director Lee Mather, who's going to answer all of our questions that we've prepared for him. So Lee, thanks for showing us around the shiny new offices, the home of Codemasters, but let's get into it. Let's talk F1 2019, because I think I'd have run out of notepaper if I tried to write down all the new features that are in the game. It's amazing to have, in an annual release, this many new things in one game. How did that come about? Is it coincidence that lots of things are ready at once, or was this a long-term plan?
No, so we've had a really long-term plan in place. We've always had a roadmap for what we need to do with the series, and we've been working towards that for some time. So obviously bringing the release date in was always something we've wanted to do. The feature set that you see this year, as you mentioned, is vast. So to do both of those things, we had to start planning a long time ago. And part of that plan was to actually increase the size of the team. So we increased the size of the team by roughly a third, and that meant that while we were developing one of the previous titles, there was already a significant number of people working on the next one, and that's what allowed us to achieve what we've done this year. And that's a model we're going to continue working on and refining, over the next few iterations.
So this isn't necessarily a one-off. It's not going to be sort of 19 won't be looked back as the game where they added loads of features and then after that it's going to slow down. There's more ideas heading through people's minds out there.
Always. We've always got loads of ideas. We always have had, and it's a case of we still can't, even with the team size we've got, get all of those in. Yeah. So we know where we're going with it. We know what's coming next.
Yeah. And have you found that as the game becomes surely more and more successful, is that making it easier to work within Formula 1 and to open things up in the way that we've seen this year?
I think it's an awareness in general, isn't it? The gaming industry is a very credible industry. We're very professional. Everybody knows what they're doing. It's big business. It's not just a case of people come along, rock up and have a bit of fun making a game during the day. Yeah. So, we create a very, very credible sports title with Formula 1. We also create a really incredible game as well. We represent the sport really, really strongly. We represent the on-track really, really strongly. And we create a great game that, other people can enjoy. So I think it's a case of we get stronger and stronger, and you get built up and get a bigger boost every year as well. I mean, already, as you mentioned earlier on downstairs, what's the mood in the team at the moment? Obviously, we're around the release window, so it's a case of everybody's still really energised and really excited now to see what happens.
Yeah, I didn't see too many people out there who looked dead on their feet, which you might expect heading into release week. Let's get into some of the bigger features. Obviously, one of the huge ones that everybody's wanted for a long time and everybody's talking about is Formula 2. Yeah. You've had to explain that in plenty of videos already, but one of the things that's really interesting is the integration with the career mode. Mm-hmm. It would have been quite perhaps straightforward to just say, right, we plonk an F2 season on the front of the game, but what we've actually got is a kind of scenario-based playthrough that sets up the rest of the career. And I've played it now, and I was a little bit sceptical because I liked the idea perhaps of a full F2 season, but it properly brought me in when I played the scenarios, and you get enough time on track as well to really get a feel for the F2 cars and how much you've done there. Mm-hmm. What was the thinking behind going along those lines instead of just saying, sure, here's a full season of F2?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you'll notice with the series is we've always looked at character as well, and the emotion and the attachment in it, and we've often talked about rivalries because rivalries are massive in the sport. But being able to establish a rivalry early in somebody's career is where that real investment comes from, and that's why we chose to do it the way we did. So we wanted the player to arrive in Formula 1 with a real vested interest in those two other drivers that you race against. So you looked at, I always use sort of Nico and Lewis as a prime example of two drivers who came through the ranks together. So when they arrived in Formula 1, there was already legacy things that had occurred in their past, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. And I think one of the coolest things was when people started saying, actually, when I see the drivers on track now in my Formula 1 career, I have to just get past, it's like, there's more of an emotional attachment than just it's nice to beat that other driver. It's a real emotional tie. People really do love or hate those two characters that we've added to the game. So it was really to set up an abridged version of a Formula 2 season to create a journey. So when you arrive in Formula 1, you've got a vested interest in those characters as well as the other drivers and your career.
Yeah, it gives you a backstory the moment you're on the grid in Australia, ideally in a car at the back of the grid. I always think people should choose one of the smaller teams first.
Do you know what? I this year, I'll be honest, I've completely changed what I normally do. So normally I start mid-table.
Yeah.
I generally go for a Renault because I like the Renaults, or last year I did Toro Rosso. This year I started my career playthrough properly yesterday, and I actually went for Ferrari because I've never in 10 years started my career in a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm going to do something completely different, and I went for Ferrari.
Obviously, one of the other fantastic layers that's been added to the career mode this year, kept quiet until the last minute, was driver transfers. Long-awaited feature that I think some people perhaps feared the restrictions of Formula One might always prevent. When you knew it was going to happen, how on earth did you guys as a team keep that one quiet until effectively a week before release?
I don't know. I mean, keeping it quiet is one of those things where you'd have to really play the game for a reasonable amount of time before you realised it was in there.
Yeah.
It wasn't something we were going to shout about from day one. We wanted to make sure that things were going to go our way and that it was going to work correctly in game, and everything was happy and everything was in place. So it's been exciting to see the response. It's been very exciting to see people pick up on it, and it's already seen some of the guys who've had copies of the game early, the influencers and the reviewers, how they've engaged with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it has, but as you say, I mean, we've spoken about it numerous times in the past, how cool that would be. So now it's it's a bit of a wow moment, I think.
Yeah, and it must be incredible when you know you've kind of got that one up your sleeve, because this year there was so much talk about F2, the new graphics, the online overhaul. We knew about so many of the new features already, and then to have that one unleashed at the last moment, just to completely surprise everyone, that must be quite a satisfying feeling when you know that something your community is begging for, you're about to deliver it.
Yeah, having something at your sleeve is one of those things I think lots of developers really want every year. And it depends on how vast your feature set is. And as you say, we've got so much in the game this year. To have a big wowzer like that as well, in reserve, was quite entertaining.
I'm sure it was. There's so many features to talk about. There's something that's almost gone under the radar, I would say, is the AI overhaul. Overhaul might be too strong a word. The AI was good already, but it's certainly taken another step this year. And I think the way the cars defend against you and the way they try and overtake you has completely changed. Yeah. What was the thinking about taking the AI to the next level?
So, I mean, we've obviously been developing our AI now for a significant number of years, and pace was originally the focus. Obviously, Formula One drivers are constantly on the edge and the pace of the car, so we have to train them to compensate for the weight of the fuel, for the tyre wear, for the wetness levels, for marbling, for the different session grip levels, because obviously sessions rubber in over the course of the weekend. So just the basics of getting a different level of AI drivers to get the cars around the track quickly was always the initial concern. And then we started layering in more and more racecraft. And this year we finally reached the point where we could start looking at some of the more intricate things, such as the blocking, the moving to defend into the the braking zones, and also the overtakes as well. And it was really to give a feeling of an organic AI that you race against. I mean, like I say, I was playing it yesterday, playing my career, and going from sort of 6th to 2nd in the race was a real battle, and it was a real battle. And it was a case of as soon as you take your eye off the ball trying to pass somebody, there's somebody trying to pass you. Yeah. But not just how you raced against the AI, but watching them race each other is absolutely incredible. I think it was a case of there were two guys in front of me. It was Melbourne, and we're coming up to sort of the last sector of the lap before you get the sort of fast sweeping left then right. And they went into that almost side by side, and I was like, this is my opportunity, because they're going to scupper their line out of here. You get the short DRS zone, I stand a chance into the last couple of corners. And because of the nature of what they were doing, it was just so enjoyable to watch them race, and I could see I was going to capitalise on it. But also, there's something that racing drivers do so effectively, which I got caught out by yesterday, was they'll obviously compromise their line into a corner, but they'll sort of slow down significantly on the apex. So you've got nowhere to go. You can't go to the outside, you can't go to the inside. So you have to slow down. Then obviously they get on the throttle earlier and get out of the corner a little bit earlier. And it was that just really wrong-footed me. And I was like, it was so natural. It's what you see in real racing. It feels really natural. And I did a few races online, and it was very similar to playing against the AI. Yeah,
it's amazing the way they respond now. You talked about the blocking. Before they'd kind of make a set move, maybe to the inside of the track, and you could keep going around them. Yeah. Now they do respond to where you are on the track, don't they? So if you show a nose, they'll move over. But if you keep going towards the pit wall, they're coming with you. And like you say, the way they race each other and the mistakes they make in battle as well. So I had one, you talked about Australia, I had Raikkonen and George Russell battling to turn 3, Russell's defending, locks up, takes them both wide, and I go through. And that's real racing, isn't it?
It is. And I think one of the very cool things is you mentioned the lockup. Because there is a pressure system in there, so some drivers are more susceptible to pressure than others in the way that works. So yeah, when you see a lockup, I think that's really exciting because it looks so natural, and the way they try and rectify it and come back onto line. But also you mentioned sort of the blocking defect, the way that they block. I think the way you watch it this year, it's very similar to watching sort of Max when he blocks. You know, you'll see him make the move, and then within the rules, there's like a little sort of maybe a little wobble here and there, and it's like the AI do that. So you're never quite sure what to do. It's like, do I go inside? Do I go outside? And it's really nice to have that. Right, I'm going to take it up the inside, and then they sort of, you see them start to edge, and it's like, no, I'm going to flick back and go around the outside. And again, because they naturally drive in the car as the player does, they can't do the crazy. They've got to allow for the the weight transfer of the car. They can't just suddenly swerve across the circuit. So it does feel very natural. And it changes the way you drive significantly. You really do plan, you do hold back, and you look for the moments where you think you're going to get a better exit. You know where you get the better exits, and it really does make for a really engrossing experience.
Yeah, and I think the days of kind of charging through the field and bullying everyone off the track are long gone now, which is a great realistic experience. Now, talking of realism, obviously the online play goes from strength to strength in the series, and the rise of the esports championship is phenomenal. But there's some great additions this year for the guys who maybe aren't at the top of the esports tree. So things like the customisation and the better management of the leagues and that sort of thing. This feels like the kind of opening up of online racing to everybody, and to give everyone almost their own identity. And is this something that you see will perhaps snowball over the next few years of the title?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at what we've been doing over the last couple of years, we've started to build on the base of the multiplayer. So obviously we had the standard accepted ranked lobbies and unranked lobbies. And then we started to bring in things like the super license to try and rank players and start cleaning things up. And then this year, obviously with the leagues, now players can run their own leagues within the game. Again, we've got the attendance rating added to the super license. It was all about sort of originally trying to clean up the experience and then start to broaden it so that more people can engage with it and enjoy it, because it is very daunting. And something I've often said about the league system is, I look online and I look at all these established leagues, and I think that's really cool. They're all having a great time racing the same people each week against the same, going for the top of the table. But it's all really daunting, and it's like, I'm pretty good at the game, but I'm nowhere near that sort of level. Whereas now I can set up my own league and invite people in that I want to race against, or vet who's coming into my league and let other people join. Or I can look for a league and join it that suits, firstly, my schedule, which is obviously always the tricky one, isn't it? You don't know which nights you're free, so you can pick which night you can race in your league, and race against people who are of your level and get a really enjoyable experience. So I think it should see a real broadening of the appeal.
Yeah. And just lastly, I think the custom liveries are something that's been really well received for online play. This is a question I ask you every year and you never answer it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's to come in the future for the series, and would something like the livery customisation perhaps point to a feature we might see in offline play in the future?
I mean, I'm not going to talk anything about what we're going to do sort of that far in the future. I will say though that at the moment, 2019 launches with just the 2018 Formula 2 content. So we are going to add the 2019 Formula 2 content post-launch. So I mean, there's obviously a plan of something we're going to do to continue expanding the title. And also there'll be additional customisation items that we release once the game's out as well. So there'll be more skins and helmets, gloves, suits. So it's an area that we're going to expand in the current game, as well as obviously putting the F2 cars online as well. That's another element that we're going to add to the game post-launch. So we've got plans to continue expanding 19 in the first instance.